Hello and welcome into another episode of the Formula One edition of the 21 Sports Network. And today we're going to talk about the Japanese Grand Prix that happened at 1 a.m. here Eastern Standard Time. And honestly, it was a bit of a snoozer. The only thing that was really interesting was Lando turning his McLaren car into a lawnmower. So that was pretty cool. And then saying that Max forced him off. But anyway, what are we going to talk about in this review today? Did the Yuki and Liam switch work? And how did Yuki do in his debut race at Red Bull? What about the rookies? A lot of rookies in this, including Liam Lawson, even though he's been in the field the past 2 years. But this is his first full season. Did Fernando Alonso score a point? Or did Lance Stroll keep carrying that torch for Aston Martin? Were my podium predictions correct? Probably not. And where are we racing next? That's coming up right now here on the 21 Sports Network. All right, did the Yuki and Liam switch work? Yeah. Even though Yuki did, qualify right next to Liam, uh, actually below him. But honestly, I think it worked out because he was actually closer to Max in practice and not really in qualifying. Qualifying, he just had a bad lap. But Liam kind of is just doing his own thing, racing Bull's car, which Yuki would put in P5, P6. He puts it in P14, and after the Carlos Sainz penalty, they move up a few spots. But I feel like it worked out really well. Yuki didn't score any points in his home Grand Prix, which kind of stinks. But honestly and truly, I feel like that switch did work out pretty well, especially for Red Bull. I think that's what they're looking for, someone to keep up with Max, stay within a tenth or two of him. So, I think that stayed pretty well. And Yuki did win Driver of the Day today. Yes, this is his home Grand Prix. Did he really deserve it? I think it really should have went to Isaac, or it should have went to Kimi. But, it is what it is at the end of the day. Or should have went to Max, honestly. But, he did pretty well for that first race in a Red Bull, because as you can tell, around that track, overtaking is kind of tough. And I feel like that second Red Bull car just has a bunch of downforce that, for some reason, is just hurting that car. Yuki is fast. And yet, when you get behind an Alpine of Pierre Gasly, you can barely get around him. That was insane. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about the rookies. And honestly, the top performing rookies were Kimi Antonelli, Isaac Hadjar, and if you want to continue the meme, Fernando Alonso. And we're going to kind of hit on 2 points here. The rookies, you got to look at Kimi, you got to look at Isaac, scoring points. And Kimi's probably right now your rookie of the year, just based upon performance of that Mercedes, performance of him. And not only is the Japanese grass on fire, but so is Kimi. Kimi has probably been the most consistent rookie driver. I know he wrecked in one of his first free practices last year, but honestly, he's performing very well. I think Toto is very happy with the pairing that he has at Mercedes right now, especially with George leading the pack, and he's kind of built into that team leading role. He's done a really good job there. Honestly, I truly think that pairing at Mercedes can win a Constructors' Championship if McLaren keeps doing what McLaren does and not let Oscar, who had the pace to go and catch up to Max, if they just want to keep handing everything to Lando, I think it's just going to be kind of trash at McLaren, even though, I guess you could call me a McLaren fan because of Oscar. I like Lando, but it's kind of one of those things that Oscar, I feel like it has more pace at times during a race, and they put in papaya rules where they don't want to let them race each other and stuff like that. And it feels like if it doesn't benefit Lando, it's not good for the team. Yes, I know that Oscar won China, but I just honestly think that's total crap. And speaking of rookies, Fernando Alonso, did he score a point? No, he did not. Aston Martin did not score a single point this race. Lance Stroll decided to take a back seat the entire weekend. He pretty much qualified last, and that's where he stayed. I mean, I don't understand. 2 weeks of scoring points. They got 10 points in the constructors. He just, I don't know what's going on in that head of his. And Fernando, that car, I thought would be better this season, but it's not. It's not. Um, I'm guessing they're waiting for next year to actually be competitive, and I don't know what happened. 2 years ago, that car was on the podium, several podiums, and I was excited to see Fernando win his next race. But right now, you're kind of just looking like, is this a legend that's looking at Max and being like, man, what if I was in that Red Bull? What if I was in that second seat at Red Bull? What if I just waited out and just, I mean, I know he couldn't stay at Alpine. I know he couldn't just because of all the tension that they had, but man, just what if he was in that second Red Bull car? If he's in the second Mercedes car, where would he actually be? But that Honda partnership ends with Red Bull this year, and they go over to Aston Martin. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens in 2026, especially with all these new regulations and Fernando being another year older and his second year in Formula One, if you want to keep beaming it up. But, being the oldest person on the grid, I mean, he still has it. It's just that car is just not underneath him. And if you remember my predictions, I had Lando Norris winning. I had George Russell being second. And to round up the podium was Max Verstappen. I got two of them correct, but all sorts of different orders. So if we want to look at it, Max Verstappen wins the Japanese Grand Prix, starting from pole position. Pretty dominant race. Like I said, the only true interesting part of this race was Lando turning his McLaren into a lawnmower coming out of the pits. And it was just funny that Lando was like, he forced me off and said, no, bro, you got released. And Max couldn't go over the other white line because it would have been a penalty for him. And he kind of had to stand his ground. I mean, you could have backed out in that situation and not lost as much time, and probably did a little bit of underfloor damage, if I had to imagine, because Oscar's pace was way better after that compared to the Lando's. So were my podium predictions correct? They were not. But like I said, it was Max, it was Lando, and it was Oscar on his birthday. Congratulations to those. Oscar and Lando scoring McLaren a double podium, which means great things in the Constructors' Championship, pulling a little bit away from Mercedes, but Mercedes scoring double points with George and Kimi, and Max being the only Red Bull car to score points, but it being 25 big ones. That's good. And here's one thing I do want to talk about that came out of this race is, does Alpine have any faith in Jack Doohan? Because they put Ryu in the car for free practice one, and Jack's a rookie, and he didn't have any seat time for free practice one. Free practice two, he has that 50G crash, that everyone's like, oh, thank God for all these safety enhancements, or he probably wouldn't have walked away from that. And I second that. I'm glad that we have all these safety precautions in racing these days for accidents like that to not happen. And I honestly just don't know what's going on with Alpine. I guess they really do want Franco in the car, or they're just looking at other options, because Jack, unfortunately, he's not getting it done. I don't feel like the race strategy isn't there for him, and I just don't know what's going on. I just feel like it's just another, I want to call it a shit show at Alpine, and it's been that way for a long time. I mean, when you have so many drivers leave, you have Esteban leave, you have Oscar Piastri leave for McLaren, you have Fernando Alonso leave, you pretty much cleared out the entire team last year. I think last year, I think they called Matt from the P1 podcast to be the team principal at one point, because of just how awful they're being ran, and they just needed someone to step in and take that position. But I don't understand what's going on with Alpine, and that's probably anything. I mean, they have all these celebrity advisors, they have all these people that invest money, and I don't know what they're doing with it other than just sitting on it and waiting for 2026. I mean, I feel like that's kind of where they're at. I don't know. You got Pierre Gasly, great talent, great ex-Red Bull driver, but You can say that, but almost half the grid, an ex-Red Bull driver. And I just want to go over the constructors' championship points. You still have McLaren leading in the constructors with Mercedes and then Red Bull right there. And like I said, Aston Martin still only has 10 points, and they're all scored by Lance Stroll. Lando Norris continues to lead in the drivers' championship, but Max is quickly going to catch up to him if McLaren doesn't have better strategies and don't try to release Lando at a weird time in the pits. And also, I don't know why they tried to undercut Max when I guess it's more of an overcut when in Japan that doesn't truly work. It's in Japan, when you come out of the pits is usually where you're going to finish. It's kind of like Abu Dhabi, and it is what it is at that point. But where are we going next? Next up is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku, and just be ready for that preview video coming out later on this week. I hope you did enjoy the Japanese Grand Prix. Like I said, it was 1 a.m. here on the Eastern Coast, and man, I made it through the first 23 laps. I woke up with them interviewing Oscar, and I was like, oh man, did Oscar win? No, Max won for sure. So, like I said, I hope you enjoyed it, and like I said, we'll see you later on this week. I'm going to go take a nap because I am exhausted from being up and then taking another nap. But it's time for me to sign off. And like I said last week, when it's lights out, it's time to overtake. We'll see you next time.